Hello learners, I am Dr. Laila Simon, Associate Professor from the Department of Management of the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Today I will be discussing on a very important topic on research, and that is types of research. As we all know that research is a tool. Business research essentially needs to follow a sequential structured path. We observe that some stages might overlap, sometimes bypass and even eliminated in some research studies. But remember, while conducting research, information is gathered through a sound and scientific research process. However, types of research can be classified into several categories according to the nature, purpose of the study and other attributes. In any research work, the researcher is expected to specify and discuss the type of the research that he uses. So, from the point of view of the application, research can be pure research and applied research. On the basis of objectives, commonly used methods are exploratory, descriptive, correlation, explanatory, experimental and historical. Interestingly, if we look at the methods of gathering information, we have qualitative and quantitative methods as well. Let me also add that no research can be done by only one method. It is mostly a combination of two or more methods for a meaningful research. In this session, I will give you an idea of few types of researchers like descriptive research, also known as conclusive research, analytical research, applied research, fundamental research, diagnostic research, conceptual research, longitudinal research, cross-sectional research, ethnographic research, empirical research, quantitative research, qualitative research, historical research, sample survey and of course, the experimental research. Descriptive research, as we said, it is also known as conclusive research. Descriptive research is undertaken to describe the situation or the state of affairs as it exists at that present. The main characteristics of this method is that the researcher has no control over the variables. He can only report what is happening or what has happened. So, the main focus here is what. These studies are a means of discovering a new meaning, describing what exists or determining the frequency with which something occurs and categorizing the information. Keep in mind that these studies deals with everything can be counted and studied which has an impact on the lives of the people it deals with. The main characteristics of this method is that the researcher has no control over the variables. He can only report as to what has happened or what is happening. For example, finding the items as frequency of shopping or preference of people. The annual census carried out by the Government of India is a good example of descriptive research. The methods of research utilized in descriptive research are the survey methods of all the kinds, including the comparative and the correlational methods. Analytical research. In analytical research, the researcher has to use facts or information already available and analyze these to make a critical evaluation of the material. Analytical research attempts to explain why and how is usually concerned with the cause and the effect relationship among the variables. These are the researches which start with a question and finds an element to analyze throughout the work. Here the focus is on why and assumes a hypothesis. For example, how can the number of COVID-19 cases be reduced? Applied research can either be applied or action based research. Applied research aims at finding a solution for an immediate problem facing a society or any business organization. Any research aimed at certain conclusions, say a solution, facing a concrete social or business problem is an example of applied research. Marketing research or evaluation research are the best examples of applied research. Thus, the central aim of the applied research is to discover a solution for some pressing practical problems. Examples of applied research: how to improve the agricultural crop production, how to cure COVID-19. Well, moving on to fundamental research. Fundamental research is also known as basic research or pure research and is mainly concerned with the generalizations and with the formulation of a theory. Fundamental research is driven by curiosity and the desire to expand knowledge in specific research area. Research concerning some natural phenomena or relating to pure mathematics are the best examples of fundamental research. Similarly, research studies concerning human behavior are also fundamental in nature. Also, an investigation to assess the stress level among the different age groups due to impact of COVID-19 is a very good basic research in psychology. Diagnostic research. Diagnostic research is similar to descriptive study with a slight different focus as it is directed on discovering what is happening, why is it happening, and what can be done. It aims at identifying the cause of problems and possible solutions to it. The diagnostic research is a type of study whose main purpose is to analyze a given situation exhaustively. This type of research seeks to identify which factors intervene in a given scenario, what are the other characteristics and what their implications, in order to generate a global idea of the context of the study object and thus allow decisions to be made based on that information collected and analyzed. Conceptual research. Conceptual research is that related to some abstract idea or theory. It is generally used by philosophers and thinkers to develop new concepts or to reinterpret existing ones. It is defined as a methodology wherein research is conducted by observing and analyzing already present information on a given topic. As I have already mentioned, conceptual research does not involve conducting any practical experiments. It is related to abstract concepts or ideas. The most famous example of a conceptual research would be that of Sir Isaac Newton. He observed his surroundings to conceptualize and develop theories about gravitation and motion. We all know Einstein. Einstein is widely known and appreciated for his work on conceptual research. Longitudinal researches. A type of research design which involves a fixed sample of population elements measured repeatedly. The sample remains the same over the time, thus providing a series of pictures that when viewed together portray a vivid illustration of the situation and changes that are taking place. A longitudinal design differs from a cross-sectional design in that the sample or the sample remains the same over time. Longitudinal studies are generally classified into three types. trend studies, panel studies and follow-up studies. So, we observed that it involves studies of sample at more than one point of time in occasion. Example, a researcher is interested to know the perception of the tourism graduates towards hospitality sector from the beginning of their degree program to the end of the degree program. Cross-sectional methods. Cross-sectional methods involve the collection of information from any given sample of the population element only once. In single cross-sectional design, one sample of respondents and the information is obtained from this sample only once. In multiple cross-sectional designs, two or more samples of the respondents and the information from each sample is also obtained only once. Often, information from different samples is obtained at different times. So, the main difference between cross-sectional and longitudinal is that cross-sectional studies, the participants are of different ages can be studied at a time. In a longitudinal study, one group of people are studied over a period of time. Ethnographic researches. Ethnography is a study through direct observation of users in their natural environment rather than in a lab. The objective of this type of research is to gain insights into how users interact with things in their natural environment. Ethnography is a qualitative research study looking at the social interaction of users in the given environment. Ethnography methods include direct observation, diary studies, video recordings, photography and artifact analysis. Observations can be made anywhere from the user's workplace, their home or while they are out with the family and friends. The length of the studies can be dependent on the research that has been conducted. They can range from a couple of hours of observation to the studies that last several months. Ethnography research helps us to know user interaction with technology in their natural environment. It also enables opportunity to test the product ideas before they are released into the market to see what market is like. However, since there is a greater insight into the user, it takes much longer to generate and analyze all the findings. Short studies may not get a user acting naturally as they are aware that the researcher is present and is being watched. Also, the cost of conducting the ethnographic studies is typically much higher than conducting a usability test. Empirical research. Empirical research relies on experience or observation alone, often without due regard for system and theory. It is data-based research coming up with conclusions which are capable of being verified by observation or experiment. We can also call this as an experimental type of research. In such research, the researcher must provide himself with a working hypothesis or a guess as to the probable results. He then works onto it to get enough facts or the data to prove or to disprove his hypothesis. He then sets up the experimental designs which he thinks will manipulate the persons or the materials concerned so as to bring forth the desired information. Empirical research is appropriate when proof is sought that certain variables affect other variables in some way or the other. Quantitative research. Quantitative research is based on measurement of quantity. It is applicable to phenomena that can be expressed in terms of numbers. Quantitative research is defined as systematic investigation by gathering quantifiable data and performing statistical techniques. Quantitative research collects information from existing and potential customers using sampling methods, and the results of which can be depicted in the form of numerical, which after careful understanding can be utilized to predict the future of a product or service so as to make the necessary changes accordingly. Qualitative research. Qualitative research is an unstructured, primarily exploratory design based on small samples intended to provide insights and understanding. It is especially important in the behavioral sciences, where the aim is to discover the underlying motives of the human behavior in a particular manner, or which make people like or dislike a particular thing. It may be stated, however, that to apply qualitative research in practice is relatively a difficult job, and therefore, while doing such research, one should seek the guidance from experimental psychologists. Sentence completion test, story completion test, and similar other projective techniques are very commonly used as part of qualitative research. Attitude or opinion research, that is research designed to find out how people feel or what they think about a particular subject or an institution, is also a qualitative research. Qualitative research is concerned with the qualitative phenomenon, that is phenomena related to involving quality or kind. For instance, when we are interested in investigating the reasons of human behavior, why people think or do certain things, we quite often talk about motivation research, an important type of qualitative research. This type of research aims at discovering the underlying motives and desires using in-depth interviews for the purpose. Other techniques, as I have already mentioned, for such research are word association test, case study methods, and some other projective technique methods. Historical research. Historical research is that which involves analysis of events that occurred in the remote or recent past. This research utilizes historical sources like the documents, the remains, etc., to study certain events or the ideas of the past, including the philosophy of the persons and the groups at any remote point of time. Survey studies. As per Campbell and Katona, he delineated 9 general steps for conducting a survey. As we all know, research is a funnel system moving from a broad objectives, which is the general objectives, and then funnel down to specific objectives. So, general objectives, that is the general purpose and goal. Specific objectives, that is the type of data or the hypothesis to be tested. Sample, type and method of choosing. Questionnaire, the content and the structure. Field work, who will actually administer the survey, the qualification, hiring and training. Content analysis, transforming the qualitative open-ended survey responses into quantitative data. Analysis plan, which is more confined to the descriptive and correlation statistics. Tabulation, decision about data entry. Analysis and reporting, conduct the data analysis, prepare a final report or the manuscript, and disseminate the final studies. Experimental research is a research conducted with scientific approach using two sets of variables. The first set acts as a constant which you use to measure the difference of the second set. It is used to study anything that can be counted or measured, such as behaviors, scores or time. The goal of the experimental research is to answer a research question. The word experimental research has a wide range of definition. In the strict sense, experimental research is what we call it as a true experiment. This is an experiment where the researcher manipulates one variable and control or randomizes the rest of the variables. Before I conclude, let me have a glance through on the various experimental designs. We have pre-experimental designs, we have quasi-experimental designs, we have true experimental, and we also have statistical test. Pre-experimental designs does not make use of any randomization procedures to control the extraneous variables. Quasi-experimental, the researcher can control when measurements are taken and on whom they are taken. And true experimental, the researcher is able to eliminate the effect of extraneous variables from both experimental and control group. And in statistical, allows statistical control and analysis of external variables. Just have a quick look on the classification of the experimental designs. As I have already discussed, we have the pre-experimental, and under the pre-experimental there are different methods. We have the one shot case study, we have the one group pre-test, post-test, we have the static group. Under quasi-experimental, we have the time series and we have the multiple time series. With true experimental, we have pre-test, post-test control groups, we have post-test only control group, we also have the Solomon 4 group. And in statistical, we have completely randomized blocks, Latin square and factorial. That is all for you today from me. Thank you for being a part of this session.